Okay. Hey everybody, my name is Haley. For those of you guys who don't know me, if you're here from Bri's blog, if she posts this ever, but for those of you who are on my blog, welcome back. This is the fourth week of the fourth module of Praxis. I've been making a video every single week, kind of going over the content I've been consuming that week, and this week I am doing a collaboration with my friend Bri. So I'll let her kind of start off and kind of tell you what we've been consuming this week. So go ahead, Bri.
Hey guys, so I'm Bri, for those of you who don't know me, and for those of you who do know me, I am in week 4 of module 4 of Praxis, and then we're just going to be going over our content that we've been consuming this week. We started off with a series of videos called Everything's a Remix, and then we went into a blog series kind of about software called Breaking Smart. So we're going to start off with the Everything's a Remix. So essentially in this video, the idea is that nowadays we don't really create anything new. We take old ideas and we just kind of revamp them. And because of this, it makes it cheaper for us to revamp them. So a big example that was given throughout the week was Led Zeppelin. They took great songs and then they would take that idea and then remix it and make it their own. And they were very open about this. It just eventually became their own thing because they got to be so big and they were so great. And that's just something that kind of started it off. And then we talked more about the different types of movies and how that is obviously very obvious throughout the years, how we just keep remaking. Like The Lion King is coming out with a new movie. It's the same movie, it's just a remake and kind of revamped to make it more interesting or better, just to show the new technological advances that we have nowadays. So that's a few of the things that we discussed in Everything's a Remix. Haley, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so those were really good examples. Another thing that I thought he brought up that was super cool was the fact that a lot of movies will be based on like a poem, and that poem turns into a book, and the book turns into like a short story or not a short story, like a short video about, and then it turns into a huge movie. Like the Harry Potter series, the maker of those, I can't remember her name now, but
Rowling.
Yes. She was like just writing them on napkins, and those napkins turned into these books that turned into these huge movies. I really like that. And then another thing, nowadays fashion is a huge remix. If you really think about it, I've been kind of going on this, huge long spiel about fashion this whole month. And I think a lot of things are really coming back in style, like from the 90s, 80s, especially like high-waisted pants, like I'm wearing some right now. Those are, we're all putting our own spin on fashion and getting inspiration from other people. And that's just how the world works. Like we all are copying each other, but putting our own spin on it. And it's really interesting to kind of see this kind of flow.
Yeah, and like how because of the fact that it's already been done, it's like I mentioned it earlier, how it's like getting cheaper because we already know how to do it. So it's kind of just like we already have like our rough draft and we didn't have to spend any time or money on it. So now it's just like bringing it back and choosing our new style to it, which like I mentioned again earlier, like with software, which kind of transitions us into the Breaking Smart series, how software is just kind of taking over the world we live in almost. It's benefiting us in so many different ways, and just kind of those ideas and where they're going from there. I'm actually going to look at my notes real quick to discuss more on the Breaking Smart stuff.
Yeah, so the Breaking Smart, just to add in a little bit for our audience, it's like a 22-part essay series. And it's just kind of talking about like the technological advances of today's world and kind of about that. But you can keep going. Sorry, I just was kind of breaking it down for people who didn't know.
Yeah. So the first article of Breaking Smart, the writer kind of talks about how he was interviewing Steve Jobs, and before the iPhone, the like touchpad thing was never a big, like it just hadn't been invented almost yet. It was just wasn't big. And the writer asks Steve, like, how do you think that people are gonna feel about this technological advancement? And he just kind of shrugs it off and says, yeah, they'll learn. And it just brings us to this great idea that like we as people, like whether you think you're adaptable to change or not, we are. Like it just always happens. It transitions somehow very easily. And it like with fashion, like we very easily transition back to like old, like cool things that were in style in the 90s and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like grunge and everything like that. One thing that you just reminded me of, I forgot, when people, you know, like older people will be less susceptible to change really, but it kind of is forced onto them with the technological ages. Like my boyfriend's grandma just got an iPhone because she had to, because literally that's what everyone uses. And I had like a 30-minute conversation teaching her how to use this iPhone, whatever she had. And it reminded me, there was, I think in part 10, there was 3 rules from the point of view of users of technology today. And it really ties into what you were saying. The first one was anything that is in the world when you're born is normal and ordinary and just a natural part of the way the world works. And that's, you know, kind of how we are thinking nowadays. Go ahead. Oh, were you going to say something?
Oh, I said, yeah, it really is.
Okay. Yeah. And then number 2 was anything that's invented between when you're 15 and 35 is new and exciting and revolutionary, and you can probably get a career in it. And then the third one is anything invented after you're 35 is against the natural order of things. So I think that really kind of ties in with like what you were saying, like we're susceptible to change, but we also have that mindset of like between these ages, like, you know, we're the pioneers, we're bringing this new technology, and but after 35, like we can't change at all. Kind of like my boyfriend's grandma, she couldn't change, and then she finally was forced into it because of everything that's changing nowadays.
Yeah, and that like, so even to backtrack, which kind of shows like how well that all of these articles go together, because I think it was in like article 3 in Breaking Smart, they talk about how how we're underestimating software and different reasons we're underestimating it. And I think actually there was like a +1, it was the 4th one, talked about how we're underestimating it so much because software is in the hands of younger generations. Like we're in the driver's seats, where typically in like businesses that are going places, it's the older generations are in the driver's seats, but software is so much in our hands that that's like something that's almost like keeping it from growing. But it's like, I don't know, it's just so interesting how this is such a new concept and the younger generation is like taking it so far. And just the different, like it even kind of brings up like the different consequences that come with the fact that such a younger generation is taking it over. And then just like other topics about how we underestimate it is how we overestimated it in a short amount of time and then we underestimated it in a lengthy time. So it was like 1995 when it was being introduced, and how we were like, oh, by year 2000, like we're going to be able to order things from our phone, and like it didn't happen then, but now that we're in 2015, that's like Uber Eats is so, I actually did that just the other day.
I know. Yeah. So like that was a huge part in, I think part 11 that I was reading. It was actually talking about Uber Eats and like all of those things, and how it's starting to become, and just Uber in general. Cars used to be a thing that people, it was a luxury. You would, if you had it, you would, you know, cherish that forever. And now it's the technology. So like if you have an iPhone, if you have like a computer or like an iPad or something, that's what you really cherish because you use that all the time and you need that every single day. You need it by your side. And so I think that was really interesting, kind of talking about how vehicles are becoming more and more like not a luxury to have, and you can just call up an Uber whenever. But you need that technology in your hand to call that Uber now. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Necessary to have a phone anymore.
Yeah.
I was actually just talking with a coworker the other day. He lived in Chicago, and
Mm-hmm.
he was saying like him and his partner lived in Chicago and they both had cars, and it was just like almost a hassle to have like two cars. Like one had a parking spot and the other, like, he always had to search for a parking spot and always ended up with tickets in Chicago because it's so like they have so many public transportations that like they didn't have cars there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What was that?
Oh, I was just going to say, it's so interesting how like we've gotten to that point where it's like people used to take public transportation more often, but now it's like it's coming back again.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's so weird how like evolution is happening. Not necessarily like from frogs to human evolution, but like technological evolution. But I think one of the next points I was going to bring up was in part 9. So we at Praxis read this book called Niche Down by Christopher Lochhead, and we got to talk to him, and it was amazing. And part 9 just goes so well with his book. I'll just read a very short excerpt from it. It says, if creating great software takes very little capital, copying great software takes even less. And they kind of go on to say like how you can copy certain software, and Mac did this with, I think it was I have it, Xerox. Yeah, they did it with that, but they did it in a different way. And that's kind of like what Niche Down says. It says, don't be better, be different. And then that's what will make you so like skyrocket. And that's what Mac did. They created the Macintosh. This is what they were saying in Everything is a Remix. They created the Macintosh, whatever. I don't know a lot about tech, but
it was like so basic at first.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like it was cool because you could like open different windows at the same time. That's like,
yes, I know. And that's it now. Yes, it's so common now. That's like, I'm recording this on my Mac, and you would never think a camera like this would be on something.
Yeah, like I have like 3 different like things open with my camera on my Mac right now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so I think that went so well with that book. I'll link it down below in my blog, Niche Down, and all of this content. It's amazing content, everything that we had this week. But I just thought it went along so well because it was talking about how you can copy someone else, kind of like there was an Oreo brand before. We were talking about this with some other participants. There was an Oreo brand before Oreos, and Oreos skyrocketed because they had something different about them.
Like the original brand.
Yes, exactly. And like they copied them, but they did something different, you know? So I just thought that was kind of a cool comparison to what we had done in Praxis.
Yeah, and then I actually just had one more question about this podcast, and then we can either close out or if you have any. So this was such a minor detail that I just thought was like, for some reason, it just really caught me. So this whole week was about how everything's a remix and how software is growing. And it was in like the first or second blog post that they mention how there's like 3 things that have influenced the world we live in today the most. And there's language, money, and then technology. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of like slightly mention how technology is even more important than like electricity almost. And it was just such a minor detail, but for some reason I was like, technology like depends on electricity.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, I think that it's definitely like obviously impacting the world we live in today. But I don't know that I could quite say that it has as much as electricity has.
Yeah. Because I think I don't know. Yeah, I kind of agree with you because without electricity, what would we have? We will literally have nothing. Like all these lights on around me. I have a mirror that has lights in it that has to have batteries. Like my computer, that is electricity. That is creating technology. So I definitely agree.
like something that I thought was really interesting and like
Mhm.
minor. He probably didn't think anything of it while writing, but it was just something I felt.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you caught that because that was just something kind of funny that you just like noticed, but it definitely needs to be there for technology to even happen. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't think I have anything else that I wanted to touch on. If you wanted to, were you done with your?
Yeah, I
Okay.
was done.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go ahead and say bye to all my viewers. I hope you enjoyed this kind of new type of call with a co-host. And if you guys have any tips or any questions about the content or anything I could improve on, just comment down below and let me know.
And same with me. Bye to all my viewers. I hope you liked this. I really love doing collaborations with Bri. She's awesome. Check her blog out. I'll link that down below too. And you guys have a great night. And I'm excited to show you what I'm doing next. So, I mean, I'm not doing any more of these videos, which is sad, but I'm excited for what's to come. So, anyway, see you later. Bye.
Bye.